أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين اللهم فقهنا في الدين آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, Alhamdulillah, by the grace and tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we are going to talk about ayah number 64, 65 and 66 of Surah Al-Imran, the third surah in the Quran. And we will go over the translation and the word by word meaning first, and then inshallah we'll talk in a little bit more detail. So ayah number 64, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون.
قل, say, Ya Ahlal Kitabi. Ya is a harf nida, meaning to call somebody, like we say, oh, this person or whatever. So Ya Ahlal Kitabi. Ahl is the people of. So it is used um, for showing an association to something. It could also be used for the family of somebody or the followers of somebody or the people belonging to something, right? So Ya Ahlal Kitabi, the people of the book. Ta'alaw. Ta'alaw, come. Ila, towards or to. Kalimatin, a word. Sawa'in. Sawa'in, equitable. Something that is in the middle. Something that so the word sawa literally means the middle of something. It's like sawa ar-ras is the middle part of the head. Sawa at-tariq is the middle part of the road. So anything that is located in the middle of the two groups, and then it is equally shared between them, and it is known and familiar to both of them, right? So that is so usually the word is used in that sense, like it is the same as, or it is equal, or it is common, which so it is used in those sense. Sawan. So come to a word that is equitable, that is same, that is similar, that is familiar, that is known to everyone. Bainana, between us. Baina is between. Na is for us. Bainana, between us. Wa, and. Bainakum, between all of you. Kum, for all of you. Allah. Allah is made of two words, an and la. So an and la. An is that, la is not. Allah, that not. Na'buda, that we will worship. So that we will not worship. Illallah, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wala, and not. Nushrika. Nushrika from shirk, meaning to associate partners. Like sharik, we say, like, so don't have any sharik, right? Don't don't do any shirk. Wala nushrika, and we will not associate partners, bihi, with him, meaning with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shay'an, anything of any kind. Wala, and not. Yattakhidha, and not take. Akhadha is to take something. Yattakhidha, to take. Ba'duna, some of us. Ba'dan, to others. Arbaban. Arbaban comes from the plural of Rabb, right? So Rabb is a lord, and Arbab is the plural, meaning the lords. So we will not take some of us over, as lords over some of the others. Min dunillah, from duni, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So other than Allah, we will not take somebody else, anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a lord. Fa'in, then if. Tawallaw, they turn away. Faqulu, then say. Ishhadu, bear witness, or ashhadu, I bear witness. Bi anna, that we. Muslimun, that we are the Muslims. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that, say, O people of the book, or the people of the scripture, come to a word that is equitable. So say is being said to kul, that is being said to the Prophet ﷺ. Say, O people, and the Prophet ﷺ is being told to say, by extension, all of us are being told to say, O people of the book, come to a word that is equitable between us and you. And what is that word that is equitable between us and the people of the book, the Muslims and the people of the book? That we will not worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will not associate anything with him, and not take anyone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a Lord. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are Muslims. And then ayah number 65. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
يا أهل الكتاب لم تحاجون في إبراهيم وما أنزلت التوراة والإنجيل إلا من بعده أفلا تعقلون.
Ya Ahlal Kitabi, O people of the book, the same as the previous one. Lima, why? Tuhajjuna, ha, jim, and jim. Mean the same root as Hajj. What are we doing in Hajj? We are fighting against ourselves and doing the Hajj. So the literal meaning of ha, jim, and jim is to argue, to fight, or to argue, or something. So tuhajjuna, why do you argue? So the people of the book are being to asked, why do you argue about what? Fi Ibrahim, concerning Ibrahim alayhi salam, wama, while not unzilat, it was revealed, and what was not revealed? At-Tawratu wal Injil. The Torah and the Injil, the Old Testament and the New Testament, they were not revealed illa min ba'di, except from after him. When Ibrahim alayhi salam was alive, the Old Testament and the New Testament, the Torah and the Injil were never revealed. They were revealed much, much later in the human history at the time of Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus. So how do you argue about Ibrahim? Afala taqilun? Do you not use your intellect? Do you not use your aql? Right. So so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, continuing from the previous ayah, O people of the scripture, why do you argue about Ibrahim while the Torah and the Gospel were not revealed until after him? Then will you not use reason? Will you not use your minds? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in ayah number 66.
ها أنتم هؤلاء حاججتم فيما لكم به علم فلم تحاجون فيما ليس لكم به علم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون.
Ha antum, here you are, antum for all of you. Ha ulai, those who. Ha jajtum, you argued, all of you argued. Fima, about what? Lakum, for you, bihi ilm, of it is some knowledge. Meaning, you are those people who argued already about the things about which you have some knowledge. You have a little bit of knowledge about some things, and you've been arguing about it. Falima, then why? Tuhajjuna, do you argue? Fima, about what? Laisa lakum bihi ilm. Laisa, not lakum, for you. Bihi, in it or of it, is any ilm, any knowledge. So you've been arguing about things about which you have little bit of knowledge. And then why do you argue about something about which you have no knowledge at all? Like your arguing has basically gone on to the areas that you have no knowledge, and you're still arguing about even those things. Wallahu ya'lamu, and Allah knows. Wa antum la ta'lamun, and while you do not know. Ain lam mean for ilm, for knowledge, for beneficial knowledge, right? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, here you are, those who have argued about that of which you have some knowledge, but why do you argue about that of which you have no knowledge? And Allah knows while you do not know. So inshallah, we'll talk in a little bit more detail about these ayat. So in ayah number 64, we are learning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say to the people of the book. So first of all, how are the people being addressed? These ayat are basically a dawah, invitation to the people of the book towards Islam. Like how do we invite? And Quran also teaches us how to invite people towards Islam as well. And a lot of tips that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, and He shows us what is the best way to go ahead, right? So in this, the Ahle Kitab, the people of the book, are being invited to Islam, and both Jews and Christians are addressed. But this surah, especially Ali Imran, the special address is to Christians. So they are the focus of attention. Although it is also meant to, and that's the beauty of the Quran, that it is meant to address different audiences at the same time, and different audiences will get different things, and it is relevant for the whole mankind, individually as well as collectively, different groups as well. But in particular, this surah was addressing the focus was for the Christians. And also, another thing is that nowadays, what happens is many educated people, in the name of assimilation and compromise, they say that, may Allah protect us, A'udhu Billah, that Allah's Nabi, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he gave invitation of Islam to the mushrikeen, to the polytheists, but he allowed the people of the book to stay on their own deen, and he gave them a lot of respect and everything. But and so let us not trouble the people of the book today, like they're already on deen, they're the and a lot of people have these kind of thoughts, and they talk about the name of assimilation and compromise, and we should live and let live, and we should allow people to. And why do you create trouble? Why do you want to create trouble and talk to people about things? And a lot of people will even say that, I don't I don't discuss about topics of religion. Like, come on, like, a religion brings trouble, so I don't want to discuss religion at all. Astaghfirullah. Like, but however, we know that and we've read already that in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 41, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed the Jews and said, and believe in what I have sent down, confirming that which is already with you. And be not the first to disbelieve in it, and do not exchange my signs for a small price, and fear me. Right? And if we put together different ayat from the Quran and different hadith, then we will see that the Prophet ﷺ gave dawat of deen to people of different religions. At different times, he was talking to people of different religions, and he invited people of different religions as well. Right? And the nabuwat of the Prophet ﷺ, the prophethood of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, was meant to be for everybody, for the whole of mankind after him. So it was meant for all people of all colors, people of all locations, geographic locations, people who had been following whatever religion or no religion, today as well. May Allah Ta'ala protect, right? Also, the word kul in the beginning, meaning a command, say this, right? This comes many times in the Quran as well, when we have the kalima kul, and then something comes after, meaning. And a lot of scholars also say this is the dalil, this is a proof that this is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like how many people claim that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he wrote the Quran himself and it was not revealed to him or anything. If the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have written the Quran himself, then would he have said the word kul to himself, as in, like, say this? Like, he wouldn't have said this to himself, but it is being addressed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Say, so who's telling him? Who is the one who's telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to say? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with this ayah, the third part, or the third section of Surah Al Imran is starting, and it is said that these ayat were revealed in between the time period which was in between the Battle of Badr and Uhud. Right. So what we see here is that the people are being addressed with Ya Ahlal Kitab, meaning, O people of the book. So one thing that we are learning is the wisdom and beautiful preaching on how do you address people. So even the people of other religions, when they're being addressed in the Quran, and they're being called towards the Deen, they're being called with so much respect and honor. They're not being told, "Oh, the deviated ones, or the ones who have gone astray, oh, yeah, you kafirun, or the people who have, like, lost their way and everything, or the people who have left the Deen or something." No, they're being called. Yes, they have gone astray. Yes, deviations have come. Yes, things have come, but they're being called with love and respect, right? So yes, they have gone a bit away from the deen. Yes, they have, depending on whatever experiences they have had in their lives, or whatever they have seen or learned, they have been conditioned into certain things. But when we call them back to the deen, we call with wisdom, and we call with beautiful preaching. And where will we get this wisdom from? Because sometimes we might beat ourselves up into saying, like, oh my God, I was not so wise in this. Like, I had this interaction with this person or this person or this person, and I wasn't so wise. So what? And then we beat ourselves for it. The point is, we are human beings, and we have limited capacity of intelligence and wisdom and ability. And sometimes we are Sometimes we are very emotional as well, like we get, and that's a part of who we are. But the thing is, we learn from our mistakes. We don't use our previous mistakes as an excuse to do future mistakes, but we learn from our mistakes, and we're like, okay, this now I learned this, that this is a better way, so I'll do this from now on. And then I'll ask Allah's help. Like when we are looking for wisdom, we know that who is Al-Hakim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim. He owns the treasure of wisdom. Like wisdom is not something we can learn knowledge by books and by listening to people and everything, but that will stay just as knowledge. That will not become wisdom unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to us. So we have to ask for wisdom again and again. And what is wisdom? Wisdom is knowledge is just I know things. And wisdom is I know how to use that knowledge, and that knowledge comes to me at the time I need it. And when I'm emotional, or when I'm like, and that could be any emotion like anger or frustration or sadness, or like, or a lot of happiness, or like success or failure. Any We can have a majority of emotions, and sometimes what happens is when we have a lot of emotions of any kind, they might cloud our judgment. Like we know, I know better, but I got so emotional, I behave like this, or I said like this. Or sometimes people are debating and calling people towards Islam, or calling people towards certain concept in Islam. And what we do is, um, we get like offended, or we get so emotional that we say in a way that instead of bringing people closer, pushes them away from the deen, right? So what we need is, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us through just these words, Ya Ahlal Kitab, that, O people of the book. So even when you're calling people, call them with respect. Like every human being, we all love to have, and this is our need. We need respect, right? So we all crave for respect, whether it's a small child, or whether it's a grown up, whether it's a 90-year-old, or whether it's a 2-year-old. We all crave for respect. So how do we address people when we are calling them towards the deen? And they could be somebody who's not even related, a stranger to us, or it could be somebody as close as our parent or our child. And we'll see that again and again in the Quran, how the prophets address their parents who were not on the deen, and how the prophets address their children who were getting away from the deen, and their brothers, and different people, right? So, and when they didn't know people as well, how did they address that? And through that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to teach us how to behave. And we wouldn't know this by ourselves. So also, we shouldn't beat ourselves up for it. We should come to the Quran as seekers, and know that, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for wisdom, and He will teach us, inshallah ta'ala. Right? So again, the lesson for us is, when giving dawah, call and address people, first of all, respectively. Oh, the people of a book. It's a respectable address, and it is liked by people, meaning you're people of the book. There is some respect and knowledge, like you are knowledgeable people. Ta'alaw. Ta'alaw meaning come here, and you're calling them. And ta'alaw is like from it has an indication of you're calling somebody towards a height. You're calling somebody upwards, right? So you're not just calling them to the same level, or somebody below, somewhere below or something. You're calling them towards a height. You're trying to elevate them. You're trying to take them to a higher ground, right? And this thing that we are calling you towards, that will take you higher. That will elevate you. That will help you to come out of darkness into light, right? So just the word ta'alu gives that connotation, that um, come ila kalimatin sawa'in, like towards a kalima, towards something which is common between us. And what was something which was common between all the prophets? Something that was common between all the prophets was, which every prophet came with the message of, and yes, their sharia could have been different, their laws, the minute details of laws and of different prophets could have been different at different time, but their aqidah was always the same. Every single prophet came with one thing which was common in all the prophets, and that was La ilaha illallah, that there is no God except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And sawa'un means something that has insaf. So another meaning of sawa'in here is that also something which has justice in it, something which is just, something which is balanced, something which is truth, something that appeals to the common sense, something that appeals to the minds, right? And something on which the adal, or the justice of the day of judgment is depends on, or is based on, is the one kalima, which is la ilaha illallah. And even if today, if we put together all the religions of the world, like if we put together every single religion that the world has ever had, like 3,000 to 4,000 religions, um, if you look at all the minute things here and there, and we put all of them together, then what will everybody agree on? And that, so for example, if we say that, okay, everybody from now on, you need to worship Buddha, or everybody now you worship Hanuman, or everybody now you worship now Christian, or Jesus is the Lord, like, or Astaghfirullah. So if we say of any of these things, would everybody agree to it? Would every single person in the world agree to it? Would everybody consider either Buddha or Hanuman or Jesus or Rama or Krishna or or Uzair alayhi salam, anybody of that matter? Would everybody across the humanity, would they consider him as Lord? That, no, that's not going to happen, right? So other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when people have gone away, and other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever has people have taken as lords throughout the human history, now everyone will say to the other, consider my thing. What I'm saying is right, what you're saying is wrong. Everybody will say, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. And then would anybody listen to the other? No. But there's one thing which everybody agrees on. And then they have created, there have been deviations after that. But any religion that we talk to, when we talk to anybody from any religion, they will say, you know what, we actually believe there is only one God. And then and then it's added, like, and then, like, this one is the manifestation of this, or they'll give some other excuse or this or that. But everything comes after that. Like, even for Hindus who worship a lot of idols and everything, they would say we worship one God, but we seek God through these idols, or we seek God through this, and the God reincarnated, astaghfirullah, in these forms, or God say this and everything, and they give a reasoning after that. But then they say our basis, we think, we believe the same thing. There is only one God. The main key God is only one. So that's only one thing that everybody will agree on throughout the humanity, throughout the beginnings of the time to the end of time. And every prophet we know came with the same message, because the concept of ilah, the concept of somebody that we need to worship, the concept of God or Bhagwan or ilah or Ishwar, that is there in every religion. And even the person who's on a lot of shirk, like a lot of polytheism and everything, a mushrik, also says Allah is one. Like, even the mushrikeen in Makkah, the people of Makkah at that time, they were ready to fight the Prophet ﷺ. They're planning to kill the Prophet ﷺ, even though they considered him Sadiq and Amin. They considered him the most truthful. Like, they were fighting with him, and that yet they were giving their stuff to him for safekeeping, because they knew he would never, he would never break a trust of somebody. So they're fighting him, but they're putting their stuff with him as well for safekeeping as well, because they knew their stuff will be safe, right? And even those people who were fighting him, ready to kill him, planning so much against him and everything, even those people, they used to say that yes, we know Allah is one. So when they were in the sea, and the sea was like, a storm's happening, and they're about to drown, or something happens, or something really, really um, life threatening, or something happen anytime, or something that they have a very big need, they would call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they would say, but for the smaller needs, we don't trouble Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for smaller needs. For smaller needs, we have like these other people, other idols that we call to kind of like put our case in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything, and do this. As opposed to this, what does Islam say? Islam says whether you have a small need or a big need. The Prophet ﷺ told us, even if you need a shoelace, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, for all your needs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enough for all your needs. And we say, Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. Like, Allah is enough for me. Like, we don't need anybody else. We don't need a mediator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a direct connection. Alhamdulillah, we have a direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And so we are saying that come towards this kalima, come towards this thing which is common between us, that and this is common between all of us, that other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't consider anybody as or anything as worthy of worship. Believe in the oneness of Allah. And that has been the common denominator between Muslims and especially the people of the book. Right? But the people of the book, meaning the Jews and the Christians in particular, by wrongly interpreting the commands of Allah. What has happened over the years? Why are they not believing in Tawheed anymore? Because what has happened over the years, over the course of humanity, is that they wrongly interpreted the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then they admitted innovations and polytheism in their religion. And this cleared the room. Through this, the room was opened up for holding concepts of like three gods along with one God, and other things that we see God through this and that and everything. And despite these alterations that have happened, we will see even today that in the existing Torah and the Gospels, there are still basic teachings of Tawheed which are present. Right? And there are certain examples that we see, even if today we see some things are still left, whether it's the Torah or the Gospel or even the Vedas and Upanishads of Hindus. So, for example, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And in Mark chapter 12, verse 29, Jesus answered, "The most important is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." And in Chandogya Upanishad, it says, "He is only one without a second." And in Upanishad chapter 4, verse 19, it says, "There is no likeness of him." This is Shweta uh, Shvatara Upanishad. And then it says in Exodus, which is the Torah, chapter 20, verse 3 to 5, "You must not have any other God but me. You must not make for yourself an idol of any kind or an image of anything in the heavens or on the earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them." And in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 7 to 9, "You shall have no other God before me. You shall not make for yourself a graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth, any like beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I am the Lord your God, and I am a jealous God." And we see in Luke chapter 4, verse 8, um, that it is written in the gospel, "You shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve." And in Mark chapter 12, verse 29 and 30, Jesus answered, the first is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength." And if we keep on, like, there are many, many, many more references, obviously, but then we get the idea, right? That even today, despite the innovations have been admitted into different things, the concepts of Tawheed are still there. If you look, we'll find somewhere. Again, we don't endorse the religious books, other religious books other than the Quran as they exist today in totality, because things have been changed. But if we look, we'll still find, and some scholars have spent their lives in studying them, and they have found that these things also exist. And also people who come from the religions, then they mention that these are the things they already learned and everything, and they see the parallel, they see the similarities, right? So today, if we see that by saying, also by using the word sawa'in, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Allah's Prophet Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not come with a new deen. He came with the same deen that all the prophets did. And today, all the divisions in the world, that can only be put aside with La ilaha illallah. Right? So people think, a lot of people come up with this objection and say that, you know what, this you're being religious or something, it creates problems in the society. It creates like, why don't you just keep your religion to yourself? Why do you have to talk about it? Why do you have to bring up this topic at places? It's uncomfortable, and it's like, okay, let everybody do what they're doing, and we feel that this causes division and everything. But actually, the reality is that this is the kalima, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. This is the kalima through which the divisions will end, through which people will actually come together in the real sense, right? And the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he never called anyone towards himself. He called everyone towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he showed the true deen to people, right? And what was the true deen? What is he calling people towards? That first of all, that we don't worship anyone besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we don't associate partners with him. Like we're not, first of all, we're not worshipping anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we are not saying that Yes, we are going to worship Allah, but we're also going to have partners. No, 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 no. There's no partners. There's no, Allah is alone in worship. We worship Allah alone and we don't put any partners with Him. We don't associate any partners with Him. Allah alone is enough. Like when we put partners for somebody, like let's say there's a business, somebody's running a business. Why do people have business partners? Like for example, I have to buy a business. Why would I seek a partner? I would seek a partner when I don't have the enough investment to buy the business, because if I have a partner, obviously I have to listen to that partner. I have to work in, it's an extra burden to have a partner, because then we have to work together in making things happen, and we have to consider each other's differences of opinion. We have to share the profit with the partner and everything, and I can't make all the decisions by myself. Sometimes I have to listen to the other person, even if um, it's not my choice. Sometimes I have to let go and listen to their choice, right? So why do people seek partners in anything, whether it's a business or anything else? Because we are not complete by ourselves. We need something else. So it's a kind of weakness that we need a partner, right? There is a weakness. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no weakness. When we say subhanallah, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above any weakness. He's above that. So he's not in need of any partner. Right? So we cannot have anybody who is sharik. Like we don't do shirk, meaning we don't associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because by associating a partner, we are ascribing a weakness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond any weakness, right? And another thing that the Prophet Allah subhanahu is teaching us about this true deen that the Prophet got for us is: one, we worship only Allah. Second, we don't put any sharik. Third, that we don't consider anybody else as Rabb other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So we don't consider anybody as Rabb, right? Islam is the religion that connects us directly and completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, right? And from this comes salam, and that we are Muslims, right? That we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we worship none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is, when we say that na'budu, that we worship only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does that mean? Worship is, and how the scholars have defined abd, to be an abid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It combines two things. It combines kamal al-dul and kamal al-hub. What does that mean? Dhul is like putting yourselves down, like humbling yourself to be a slave of somebody, to literally submit yourself to somebody. And Kamal al Hub is like extreme worship, sorry, extreme love. Right? So first, worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combines two things, and that is extreme submission, extreme humility, extreme like slavery to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, putting myself below in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, literally submitting physically as well as emotionally in my heart, submitting my heart and my head and my body to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, literally, and submitting myself to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I feel like doing something, but Allah ta'ala told me not to do this, then I don't do this. Like, so even whether it's religious matters or non-religious matters, like if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me, don't go there, I don't go there. So, like we learned in Surah Baqarah, Sami'na wa ata'na. Allah says, when He says, do something, I do it. We hear and we obey, right? And there's extreme, in this obedience there is extreme humility and there's extreme love. There's no like thing inside our hearts that, oh my God, why did He tell me to do this, or this was so thing. No, we do it out of love. When we do something out of love for somebody, then the whole energy is different, right? So when we do ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is extreme submission, extreme love combined together, right? And components of ibadah, like what are the components of ibadah when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The components of ibadah, physically speaking, are sajda and ruku and dua and putting ourselves down. So what follows is that we cannot do this, first of all, for anyone or anything else. Like we don't do ruku for anybody else. We don't do sajda for anybody else, right? And may Allah forgive us, astaghfirullah. Even today, as something as small as sports or something, like people are watching sports or people watching a performance by an entertainer, and they would do these actions of like putting their hand and head down like a sajda. They would show their appreciation by doing kind of like a half sajda or a ruku kind of a thing, and may Allah Ta'ala protect us. We don't even realize what we are doing when how shaitan misleads us, that this is, and why is this so important? Because this is a part of worship. And so sajda and ruku and bowing yourself in front of somebody, these are a part of worship. So we don't do this in for anybody else. Even doing dua, what does doing dua mean? Meaning asking somebody to grant you a wish without any means. Like, for example, if I'm thirsty and if I tell my child, can you give me a glass of water? That's not ibadah, because I'm asking my child to use a means, physically get up, get a glass of water. There's a glass there, there's a water there, to take the water and give it to me. Like, it's a means. They're not going to give me something out of ghaib. Like, they're not going to say water and the water will just come, or they're just going to say something and my thirst is gone. No, that kind of, when we asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need any means to make things happen. He just says, He's the only one who says kun fayakun. He says kun and it happens. For anybody else, we can seek help from each other. We can work. Obviously, we live in a society. We have families. We have communities. We have things to do together. We will ask each other to do things for us and everything, but we ask through the means, right? That okay, and then we attribute all help to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of it. But all the actions of worship which are primarily for the worship, like which we do in our salah, the ruku, the sajda, and when we make dua for somebody, when we make dua, that has to be only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we don't have any partners, and we don't consider anybody else our Rabb. Now, listening to this ayat, a question came into the mind of Ati bin Hatim, which was the son of Hatim Tai, right? And a very famous personality in pre-Islamic period was Hatim Tai. And Hatim Tai, what was he known for? He was known for being very, very generous. Hatim Tai was known for anybody would come to his, ask him something, he would be extremely generous. And there were some of the qualities in the Arabs at that time that were exceptional qualities. Like, they were extremely generous. They were really good hosts. When somebody would come to them, they were really, really good hosts. Like, we even learn about Ibrahim alayhi salam, when the angels came, he rushed to, like, roast and like slaughter and roast the meat and get the food for them. Like, he rushed to feed them. He rushed to do things. Like, so he was a very good host in that sense. Like, all, and the Arabs generally were a very good host, and they were very, very generous as well. And again, just a side point here. Sometimes when we are, there's something which is not so good about a certain people. Like, so if people are doing shirk or something wrong practice that they're doing, and we're calling out on them, or we're trying to take them out of that, or we're trying to help them out of that, doesn't mean we disregard all the good that they have, right? Some Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some good to everybody. So also to even if somebody's in wrong practices, there is certain good. Like, for example, if you see in Western countries of today, yes, there's a lot of shirk, yes, there's a lot of atheism even, but we also need to appreciate there's a lot of discipline as well, which we don't see back home. There's a lot of freedom. Sometimes it's abused, but there's a lot of freedom of expression as well, right? So anyway, so Ati bin Hatim, who was basically, he was a Christian before, and then he reverted to Islam. Then he became a Muslim, and then when he was listening to this ayah, then a question came to his mind, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ that in the Quran it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that we don't take anybody else as Rabb other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Christians, they don't make anybody as the Rabb. They're still considering the Lord as the God only. They're not considering anybody else as Rabb. So what does it mean by this, that do not take anybody else as Rabb? And then the Prophet ﷺ replied to this that that many people from among them, they give the status of the words of their ulama, meaning their religious scholars, and they give almost the word of the religious scholars as much weightage as the word of God, meaning that whatever the religious scholars say, even if they don't have the dalil for it, they will take it as halal or haram, right? And this is what making somebody Rabb is. That after something, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said something, after that, to put somebody else in that position that they will tell you what is halal or haram, that if they say it is halal, then you consider it halal. If they say it is haram, you consider it haram, right? And no matter what Allah says, astaghfirullah, then that is making someone your Rabb. And these are the kind of chains that over ages humanity has put themselves in. And Islam came to remove this and free mankind for this. So it has been over the generations, if we see, it has been a misguided practice of the people of different religions that, and even modern day Muslims, many of them, many groups engage in that. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us. That they what they do is they allow their learned people, their theologians, their priests, their monks, their Sufis, their dervishes, their pandits, their yogis. They give these people as the right to interfere in divine Sharia, right? And of deciding halal and haram. What Islam's teaching us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us another aspect of saying La ilaha illallah is that this, considering what they have said halal is halal and haram is haram, unless they're talking from the Quran and Sunnah and they're giving you a dalil and they're, like, and they're open to like, okay, what has been the study of different scholars about it and everything, and they're coming to the right conclusion and looking at things in the light of different ayat, and that's a different matter. But just allowing your learned people to give the right to interfere in the Sharia, that Islam considers it as polytheism, right? So our Malik, our Khalik, our owner, our maintainer, our provider, our Rabb is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like we know from the Sirah that the Prophet, there was a time that the Prophet ﷺ made honey, just a small thing, a honey, something to eat, just as haram on himself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, you cannot do that. And even prophets, and even the best creation, even the best prophet, even the Imam of all the prophets, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu, even he could not decide what is halal or haram. It is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So we don't let anybody else dictate other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, if we are taking the route of learning through the scholars about what is halal or haram, because we're trying to learn more about the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a different matter. But when we just take, okay, because my group's leader has said this, so that's it. I'm not ready to listen to anything else or everything, then that becomes a problem, right? And subhanallah, in this short ayah, we are understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us the complete aqidah of Deen Islam, right? And then after that, even after you've explained the aqidah of Islam to somebody and they've understood as well, right? And even after that, if they turn around, they say, no, you know what, they understood it, and we know, like Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has given us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us this intelligence to, He teaches us that we know when people have understood something and when they have not understood something, right? So when somebody's totally understood it and everything, and even after that, for whatever reasons, whether it's pride or whether it's excessive desires that they don't want to leave, or their lifestyle that they don't want to change or anything, and if they still turn after that, after understanding and after they have totally understood everything and they still turn away, then what are we supposed to do? Then our attitude that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaching us is what our attitude should be is, okay, then if you want to go, then go. We won't force you. But we are Muslims, right? So when we are true in our dawah and about what we are calling people to, right? We stick to what we have. And sometimes what happens is that's another part of our dawah. And sometimes when we're inviting somebody, maybe it's a loved one that we're inviting towards the deen, maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a husband or a wife, maybe it's our children, maybe it's our community members, maybe it's somebody that we know, a professional colleague or something, right? And we really, really, really want them to come to the deen, but it's just not working. We're trying to tell, and that person's not listening. And sometimes we get frustrated. It's like, I'm trying to explain. They have understood even. I know in the heart of hearts they've understood that this is the truth. Then why are they not accepting? Why are they not turning? So sometimes some people need time. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us is that this is another part of dawah is that like that you keep be firm on your deen, and you're saying we are Muslims, meaning that you keep going on in your path. What happens is, then if you keep going on and on and on, what happens is the other person starts to think, you know what, I'm not supporting her in what she's doing, and yet she keeps going on and on and on. She gets so many obstacles in her path, like sometimes this happens, sometimes that happens, and sometimes, but she like somehow she overcomes these obstacles and she keeps going on and on and on, and she is supporting the truth, she's standing up for the haq. Then sometime this thought will come into the person's mind, why should I be left behind? let me also join, right? So when we are firm and when we are not that we are ill-mannered, not we are like thing, but sometimes with some people, once you have explained things to a certain point, once it has gone to that point that you know they have understood it, but they're not doing it, maybe then they need to see the strength of the iman. Maybe they need to see you going ahead, and that will slowly change their perspective and everything, because they will see that, right? And by saying be anna muslimun, like that we are Muslim, first of all, when we saying it, we are affirming to ourselves, even like we are strengthening our own iman. But and also, like we said, it is also an effort to ignite this above feeling, this feeling being inspired in the heart of the other person that we are giving the dawah to, whether it's people of the book, whether it's people who are ex-Muslims, or whether people who are born in Muslim families but they don't know much about Islam, whether it were people from born in Christian or Jewish families, or whether it is like our own people who have been Muslims but they're starting to drift away. May Allah Ta'ala protect. A'udhu billah. So this one thing is, this represents the very essence of Islam. That when I'm saying I am a Muslim, this represents that because Islam literally means submission and commitment to the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we are trying to say is that you, whether you accept it or you don't accept it, I am a Muslim, right? We are Muslims. And so one example that our teachers give is, supposing there's a very delicious food, you have like super delicious meal, you've never had such a delicious meal ever, and you're eating it, and then you're enjoying it so much, and then you want your husband or your wife or your children or your community or your parents or somebody, you want them to really enjoy it as well, but and you offer it to them, but they refuse, right? You explain, you know what, this is made of this, and this is so good, and this is not just good for health, it tastes so good as well, it's so amazing. And they say, yeah, okay, but they still don't want to eat it, right? And you say, okay, whether you eat it or not, I am eating it, right? And then when you start eating, and when they see you enjoying it, they keep seeing you, they keep looking at you, you're enjoying it, you're having a good time with it, you're really enjoying the meal. What happens is, sometimes when you're sitting on the same table, we offered it to them before, they said no, but when you keep eating, the other person's like, you know what, they start to feel like, it's a human nature, they start to feel like, you know what, okay, she's enjoying it so much, let me try eating it too. Maybe because it was different, they were a bit uncomfortable in trying that, but once they see you enjoying it so much, right, they're like, you know what, let me taste a bite too. And when they take a small bite, and then they take another small bite, and then they take another small bite, and then they go ahead, inshallah, and they might end up uh, enjoying it as well, right? So this is also a way to inspire and attract others, right? So when we when another thing is, when we are giving dawah to people, when we're calling people towards the deen, when we're calling people towards the truth, you don't stop, like we don't stop, right? And sometimes what happens is, like they say that, especially for women, they say that women are the navigators of their family, like yes, the husband's the head, but we are the neck, right? So what happened, neck and the backbone. So what happens is, wherever the neck turns, they say the head doesn't have an option but to follow, right? Because and sooner or later it will follow, because that's where you're going, right? That's what you're leading and everything. So may Allah Ta'ala guide us to, first of all, to follow the truth, and to be there with the truth, and not to be deviated ourselves, and be a means of bringing other people to the right path as well, right? And if we are deviated in anything, may Allah Ta'ala bring us back, right? So one thing is that we stick to the right path, and we walk together, and we walk ahead. So sometimes what happens is, like, let's say there are two people who are walking together, and one of them goes ahead and the other one's a bit behind. So what does the person who's ahead do? Like, so if we have gone ahead in something, like maybe one of us has accepted Islam, or when maybe one of us is trying to get closer to the deen, but not other people in our family, or maybe like we've gone slightly ahead in whichever way, in whatever grade or anything, we have got ahead. Now what should we do? Now the other person's behind, we can't leave them and go either, because we are connected to each other, right? And we can't stop either. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us a principle, like for example, if you imagine the scene when they were walking together. Now one person's gone slightly ahead, the other's a bit behind. What do? You keep walking, and you keep looking at the person. You keep turning and looking at the person, right? And keep calling them. You keep calling them, and you keep looking at them, you keep turning and looking at them, and you keep calling them, and then but you keep walking ahead as well, right? And what will happen, the other person sooner or later will start to want to catch up, and they'll catch up, inshallah, right? So the one who's giving the dawah, if they don't leave their dawah, right? If they don't leave what they're doing and start going after their nafs or their desires and everything, then those who have left behind also will they will also one day join them, right? But the day when those who are giving the dawah of the deen, when they start compromising themselves, right? Then that, and they start saying things on the same tone, like, this can't be done today, that can't be done today, and everything, then others will not come. Like, so first, for us to be firm ourselves is really, really important. Like, for example, if you think of an animal like a goat, or is tied by a little rope around the neck, and it's tied with in villages, in countries sides and everything, it's tied by a rope, and it's tied to a little thing in the ground, like the little wooden post or something. Now if that post itself becomes loose and moves from the place, then the goat will not stay tied up, right? So if we want to we want to really call people, our loved ones, to the deen, first of all, we have to be firm. And doesn't mean ill-mannered, doesn't mean nasty to people, but means that we have to keep following, we have to keep calling them with love. At the same time, we have to keep ourselves from. That's why the Prophet ﷺ made the dua that he made very frequently was, Ya muqallibal qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Right? O turner of hearts, make my heart firm on your deen. Because when we make our own heart firm on the deen, then it will inspire the others. Because if our own heart is slightly shaky, sort of, if like maybe kind of sort of, then we can't really call other people. So we have to form ourselves first. And like one of our teachers, they say always that make sure that you protect your own hidayah. You don't lose your hidayah in the effort of giving hidayah to the other people, right? So you have to really be very protective of your own guidance as well when you're calling other people to the deen, right? And the Prophet ﷺ also told us that the first deviation that started in Bani Israel was that, at first what would happen is they would see some people doing something wrong, and they would ask them to stop. They would say once, and the people who they're trying to stop, sometimes they would make fun of them, sometimes they would say nasty things to them, or this, like, they will face certain opposition, they would face something. For a few days they will keep calling those people to that stop this thing wrong and everything. But when people would not listen to them, eventually in some days what would happen is the one who was stopping would also join them in the mistakes and the sins they were engaged in. They were like, okay, nobody's stopping, might as well I do it as well, right? And when the people of deen come go that side as well, then what's left, right? And so in every time, the the desire of shaitan, the what shaitan tries to do is, shaitan tries for the people who are associated with the deen to make them say something, that this is okay, this is okay, okay, this is permissible, okay, this is fine, or something which is very slightly off track, right? Or today, in today's day and age, this cannot be followed, so like this is fine, or this you can get it. Like, shaitan tries this. Why? Because once a person of deen says it, then you feel comfortable. Okay, he or she has said that, they know deen much more than me, so common people, they just, like, who have little less knowledge, they'd be like, okay, he or she says more. So that's why the people who are really close to the deen, or any of us who are students of the deen, and think, we have to be very careful on what we tell anybody. If we don't have knowledge of something, then there is no harm in saying, I don't know, right? And I will ask. And that's the characteristic of the people who are like, to get a very strong fatwa about, to get a very strong opinion about something, even to get the opinion of a scholar about something which is disputed, is so hard. Of a real scholar, if you ask them something, either yeah, they will not reply, or they'll take their time to reply, or they'll make sure they research a little bit more and reply. Like, uh, they will take their they would not they would be afraid of saying something that might be misinterpreted. Like, yes, Allah Ta'ala alam, after that we try our best, and then obviously we are imperfect human beings, but in the matters of deen, they're super careful about not saying anything. And the higher up in scholarship somebody goes, the more and more careful they are about how they use, what do they say, and what blanket statements do they make, and everything. Another thing here is that we learn about through this ayah that the Prophet ﷺ called people to the deen, meaning after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah happened in the Sirah, when peace was established, like there was no more fighting going on between the Mushrikeen in Makkah, between the Quraysh and the Muslims, then the Prophet ﷺ exerted himself in the field of dawah. And what did he do? He sent letters to non-Muslim leaders like of Iran, of Heraclius of Rome, Caesar of Byzantine, Khusros of Persia, Negus of Abyssinia, Muqawqis of the ruler of Egypt, Harth Ghassani, the governor of Syria, Munzir bin Sawa, and to the ruler of Bahrain. So the Prophet ﷺ, sent letters to the people, and in these letters, sometimes he would quote this ayah when he would send the letter to the people of the book. So, for example, the letter that he sent to Heraclius of Rome, the Prophet ﷺ said, in the letter of the Prophet ﷺ said, in the name of God, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the bestower of mercy. This letter is from Muhammad, son of Abdullah, the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, to Heraclius, the ruler of Byzantine. Salam to the one who follows the right path. So first of all, let's just pause here. Salam. How beautifully the Prophet ﷺ wrote the letter is he introduced himself and he said what he's like he's the son of so and he's the slave of Allah and his messenger. So he just that shows what his mission is. And then he says salam to the one who follows the right path, right? So he's saying salam if there is Islam, so clear and yet so respectful, right? So he's not compromising on the deen and he's saying salam, but if you come to the deen, he was very respectful at the same time, very clear as well, right? Not compromising. So after that, he says, furthermore, I invite you to Islam, and if you become a Muslim, you will be safe, and Allah will double your reward. But if you reject this invitation to Islam, you will be committing a sin by misguiding your arisin, meaning your presence. And then the Prophet ﷺ quoted this ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying from the Quran, O people of the book, come to a word that is equitable between us and you, that we will not worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we will not associate anything with him, and we will not take one another as lords instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if they turn away, then say, bear witness that we are Muslims, submitting to him. So the Prophet ﷺ was a leader of the states and ruler of Medina at this time. And now that they were in a peace phase, it was his responsibility to give dawah to other non-Muslim leaders. And through this, we also learn another level of dawah, meaning a Muslim leader, a person who's a leader in a leadership position and a Muslim at that, they will be asked about giving dawah to other leaders who are not yet Muslim. Right. So we should talk to our contemporaries, like no whatever level Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, then and whatever once we are in that peace stage, when we are in the right time and zone, then we should reach out to people who are our contemporaries in whatever level we are in, right? And then this ayah talks about the common ground, like we said that. So sometimes what happens is when we are giving dawah to people, a lot of people they start from differences. You guys say this, but we say this. You say this, but we say this. But what is Quran telling us? Quran's telling us the opposite. Speak on the common grounds, right? Try to bring people together, try to bring people close, not push them away. So for example, if you look at a zipper, right, like a zipper in a jacket or any cloth or any clothes or something, any garment, what happens when we want to close it? We have to start from the two parts which are closest to each other, and we join the two links properly. If we take our time to join the two links properly at the very bottom and they're close to each other, then the rest flows easily, right? So but if the base is not like aligned properly, or if we don't start from the place which is together, then it might be hard to close the whole zipper, right? Also, for example, another example that people give is that for a husband-wife relationship, right? And their arguments, and of course this is the relationship, obviously you live together, you're people from totally different backgrounds sometimes, you're different genders, you have a different way of thinking of things, and of course when you're trying to work, and when we work in a family with limited resources and time and energy and everything, there are going to be disagreements, and there are going to be challenges. That is a part of every single marriage. No single marriage has ever been where there is no differences of opinion or arguments and things like that. So that is going to happen. But when that happens, what we are taught is look for the common ground, look for the strengths, right? Look for things that join you rather than things that make you away from take you away from each other. So what is common between both of you? What links you together? Look at those strengths and then combine them, build from those strengths. Don't start from differences, start from commonality, start from the principles that both of you hold dear to each other. Maybe it's honesty, maybe it's like honest business practices, maybe it's honest, maybe it's the concern for your children, maybe whatever it is, through those strands. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inshallah put barakah in coming together, right? We learn, our deen teaches us, Jamaat par Allah ka haath hota hai, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hand is on the people when they come together. So Islam teaches us try to bring people together, whether it's a family or whether it's a community or whether it's any other organization. Try to be the force that brings people together rather than divides them. Right? And in the next ayat, and the same concept of coming together and common ground is elaborated in different ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will elaborate it. Right? Another thing that we are learning here is that we also learn in hadith is that in front of Khalik, we don't listen to makhluk. We don't do itaat of makhluk in front of, when Khalik is telling us to do something, when our creator is telling us to do something, we don't listen to other creation against that. Right? So sometimes we are so worried that, like, I'm walking on this earth and everything, I have people around me, and I'm afraid how they look at me, like I might not look appealing to them, I might not look, they look at me like funny when I'm talking about all these things and everything, or they look at me like that. But what we forget is the the one who's facilitating my breathing, the one who has put the earth and the sky for me. I have to obey that one more, right? So when we are saying La ilaha illallah, the kalima, the first part of the kalima is La ilaha, meaning first part is negation of Taghut, negation of anything that stands in competition with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then affirmation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our Lord, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even like a hint of shirk. That's why we learn the dua. The Prophet ﷺ taught us the dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min an ushrika bika shay'an a'lamu wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. Ya Allah, I give myself in your protection against shirk, any kind of shirk that I know of, and I seek forgiveness from with you against any kind of shirk that I'm not even aware of. Right? So even a doubt of shirk is there in something, then leave it. Like for example, in one of the times of Akbar, which was one of the Mughal leaders in India, in his court they were designing a new a new seal for him, and they were thinking what to put on that seal, and some people suggested let's put Allahu Akbar, but the scholar, whose name was Ibrahim, said, no, let's not put Allahu Akbar, but let's put Wala dhikrullahi Akbar, meaning like, but the dhikr of Allah is Akbar. And so the emperor, who was Akbar, commented that, it was not my intention to put Akbar, and when I'm saying Allahu Akbar, I'm not referring to Akbar as in myself, my name, because his name was Akbar. But the scholar said, what did the scholar say? Why did the scholar say no? He said, in in something in which there is even a doubt can crop up, then let's avoid such words. Allahu Akbar generally is different, but as an emperor whose name is Akbar, when you're putting Allahu Akbar, people might be misled into thinking what do you mean. So we won't even say that, right, in that particular scenario. So Islam teaches us to pay attention to even our words, and understanding Akida is must. So in something in which even a doubt comes, then run away from those things, those words. We cannot take that risk, because shirk is like a poison that can destroy everything, right? So and then when we are saying the concluding words here, when we are saying that we are Muslims, this emphasizes the fact that it is this spirit of Tawheed, which is um, which is symbolized by Islam, which is like surrender and submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And this is the real purpose of our life. This is our goal of life. And any person who's alien to this concept, this essence of Tawheed, they will also be alien to Islam, no matter what they call themselves. And the one who's alien to Islam is essentially going to be alien to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A'udhu billah, may Allah ta'ala protect us. Allahumma inni as'aluka ridaka. Ya Allah, we seek your pleasure. So the words, another thing here is when we see the words to bear witness, meaning we are fakulu shhadu Bi anna muslimun, that, and then bear witness that we are Muslims. What are we indicating when we're saying that to bear witness? Meaning it's a declaration of immunity, meaning be warned and bear witness. I have conveyed this message to you. Now it is up to you to accept it or reject it. You alone will be accountable before God on the day of judgment, and we have done our duty. Like, our duty is just to convey the message. To convince somebody is not our duty. Whether somebody accepts Islam or doesn't accept Islam, or how much of a degree to which they follow Islam, is up to them. Our job is just to convey in the best way possible, right? And keep improving on that day by day, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by keeping asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hikmah, and treating everybody that we encounter with respect and love, with genuine love and care, that I really want them to be saved from Jahannam. And this also teaches us a lesson. If somebody refuses to accept the truth, even after it has been proved very clearly, then the proper course after that is to restate our own belief that I'm a Muslim and conclude the conversation then. Then there is entering into any further debate, or, like a verbal back and forth and this and that, is not appropriate anymore. Then we should leave it at that point, because then we are opening the door for unnecessary debates that will put our own selves and our own iman into danger as well sometimes. May Allah Ta'ala protect. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, Ya Ahlul Kitab, lima tuhajjuna fi Ibrahim, that you are arguing about Ibrahim. So here we learn that what was happening at that point when the delegation of the Christians had come to Medina, the Jews of Medina were arguing with the Christian delegation of Najran. So the Jews and Christians are arguing with each other, right? And they were not listening to the Prophet ﷺ, but they were all making the claim that they were from the lineage of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And every group had the same dawah. Like, for example, the Quraysh of Makkah, the Jews, the Christians. Ibrahim alayhi salam was the grandfather of Bani Israel. He was also the grandfather of Bani Ismail. So everybody considered him their religious leader, and they all ascribed their religion to him, or everybody tried to use his name to support their position, right? So and this is human nature, and we'll also see this over and over in human history, as well as also in present, that some people's personalities are like that. Some personalities are so amazing, they that um, near or far, everybody wants to associate themselves with them. Like people who are really famous or really awesome, what we do is like, why do we take autographs? Why do we take pictures with them? Why do we take selfies with them? Because, like, I met him. I met this and that, or I'm related. Or, you know what? He's my uncle's nephew's, like friends, sisters, this one to this one to this one. That's how I'm related to this one. Like, we try to form a relationship with somebody who we look up to, who's like honored in the society or everything, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave so much honor to Ibrahim alayhi salam, so much honor to Ibrahim alayhi salam, the same child who had left his family for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was ready to, as a man, who was ready to sacrifice, who left his wife and his child for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was heartbreaking, must have been heartbreaking for him, but still left them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was ready to slaughter his own child for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala not put any of us in the test that we are not able to bear. And then how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor him? How did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honor him that everyone wants to associate with him? Everyone wants to, like, we are like that. So usually that's what happens when somebody is very famous or when somebody is very honorable. Then people like to form their relationship with them. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was a universal personality. Everyone wants to link himself themselves with him. So Jews are saying that Ibrahim was a Jew. Like, they're arguing, their arguments that are happening is Jews are saying that no, Ibrahim was a Jew. And Christians are saying no, he was a Christian. And Judaism and Christianity came into being centuries after Ibrahim alayhi salam. But if you see then, like, how many years after Ibrahim alayhi salam was the Torah or the Injil revealed, right? How can anybody say Ibrahim alayhi salam was a hafiz of Torah, right? It's almost like saying that some child says that, I was there at the wedding of my mom and dad. Like, uh, how silly does this sound? Do you really think about what you're saying? Like, basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, like, really, can you use your mind and say this Torah came 1,000 years or more after Ibrahim alayhi salam, and Injil came more than 3,000 years after. Similarly, the polytheistic religion of the people of Makkah, like the Mushrikeen in Makkah, they also invented religion after a long period of time after Ibrahim alayhis salam. Ibrahim alayhis salam was not at all a polytheist. On the contrary, we know that he was Hanif. He was a standard bearer of the belief in Tawheed, right? He was a Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us again and again, he was a Muslim, right? And then yet people are ascribing themselves to him and doing things which are not his way at all, right? Ibrahim alayhis salam was single-minded. He followed the straight path of Tawheed. True inheritors of Ibrahim alayhis salam are those who follow his way. And inheritance with Ibrahim alayhis salam is not based on family or racial connections, but it is based on faith and obedience. Like, do we follow the way of Ibrahim alayhis salam? Like again and again, Quran will tell us millat Ibrahim. Like we are the what are we as Muslims? We are the children of Adam alayhis salam. We follow we follow the way of the millat of Ibrahim alayhis salam, and we are from the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's who we are, right? So we the true inheritors of Ibrahim alayhis salam are those who follow his deen. The people who are closest to Ibrahim alayhis salam are the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions who believe in him, rather than the Jews or the Christians or the Mushrikeen who have distorted and changed the religion of Ibrahim alayhis salam without beyond any recognition. Another thing here is that when we say that we are Muslims and uh, we talk about that not calling ourselves this or that and everything, um, as Muslims today, like sometimes like we say, okay, I'm a Hanafi or I'm a Shafi'i, and if we look at Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Shafi'i, they were Muslims. They were not Hanafi or Shafi'i. Now, there is no harm today for us today. What does this mean for today, us today? There is no harm in following the rulings of one particular school of thought, right? But what's not right is that we get so bent on in this that this I'm a Hanafi, so just the Hanafi way is the correct. Everything else is wrong, deviated. Anybody who doesn't follow my way, it's not a Muslim anymore. Astaghfirullah, right? So, and sometimes if we look at the different even Muslims today, for us, sometimes just being called a Muslim is not good enough. People want to add something. What kind of a Muslim are you, right? So it's not just a Muslim is not enough. I need to know more. What kind of a Muslim and this and that. So one of our teachers, she explained it really well. She said basically, if you think of mathematics, right, you have a problem in mathematics and you have different approaches to solve that problem. You can use trigonometry, you can use algebra, you can use arithmetic. There are different approaches. But what you do is you follow one approach and it will lead you to the answer, but you follow that approach properly. You can choose which approach to follow. All are correct, but you don't mix and match the approaches. You don't take one aspect from one approach and one aspect from another approach because you don't you're still in the beginning stages. You're still in the or you're in the intermediate stages. You're not an expert in all the schools. So when it comes to fiqh matters, it's actually advisable. Yes, you follow one school of thought, and but you don't call others wrong. You follow one school of thought, and then you follow its way to decide your matters on what will break wudu, what will not break wudu, what to do things like that. There are many things. You follow an approach, but you don't as long as you're a normal day-to-day person and you have limited amount of knowledge and everything, you follow that. But those who reach the level of scholarly things that they're experts in all these religions, they have spent years studying fiqh and these things, like we can think of them as super trained super mathematicians. Now they have this room because they understand the implications of this versus that, and if I take this part from here and this from here, like then they can form their opinions and everything, right? So again, being Muslim should be enough for each one of us, right? But then we follow a school of thought, and then we don't make claims that are not becoming of us. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about what these people were doing, what these people were arguing about, right? Everyone was claiming that their religion was the right religion, like the Jews, the Christians, the Mushrikeen in Makkah. Everybody claims that my religion is the right religion. I'm on the and everybody's claiming I'm on the original religion of Ibrahim alayhis salam. And this religion that these Muslims are calling you to, this Quran is inviting you to, is this is a new religion. We are actually the real ones. Like everybody's saying the same thing, right? So what the Quran then is telling you is, look, you are those people. You have been arguing about things left and right. It has been your um, it has been your way of just arguing all the time. You argue about this, you argue about that, you argue about why have you changed the Qibla, you argue about like everything time something Muslims do, you argue about this, like why are Muslims doing this, why you have a problem with everything, why are you doing this, why are you doing that, and everything. And you have been arguing about things about which you have a little bit of knowledge. But now you're arguing about Ibrahim alayhis salam about which you don't have a knowledge, right? Um, how can you fight about him, right? So you know very well that Ibrahim alayhis salam was not a Jew or a Christian, right? But well knowing that as well, that you are still arguing about this, right? Because what are these people trying to do who are arguing? Like somehow what they want to do is they want to put whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying on the side and put themselves as the hero and put themselves as, like this is my thing, this is the right thing, and put aside whatever the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is calling them towards, right? So uh, so again, for example, even Moses or Musa alayhis salam or Isa alayhis salam, Moses or Jesus, they were not Jews or Christians as people are now. They were Muslims. They were true Muslims, right? So if people say that the Sharia of Ibrahim alayhis salam was similar to that of the Jews and Christians of today or of the time of the Prophet sallam, that is also wrong. How can they claim to a thing which was beyond their knowledge and which was neither mentioned in the Torah nor the Injil? Like neither in the Torah nor the Injil it mentions what was the way of Ibrahim alayhis salam in that sense. Like Ibrahim alayhis salam was not a Jew. Ibrahim alayhis salam was not a Christian. It is never mentioned in any of these things. It is sheer foolishness to quarrel about a thing that is not known to somebody at all, right? And they had quarreled about things before, meaning they have been when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you are the ones who have argued already, meaning what have they been arguing about before? The Jews and the Christians, for example, they have been arguing about the events connected with Isa alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the beginning of this surah what is the truth regarding Isa alayhi salam. But they have their own versions. The Jews have their own versions, a'udhu billah, and the Christians have their own versions, a'udhu billah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the true version, right? Or they argue about the signs connected with the last prophet, things of which they had some knowledge, although it was quite imperfect, right? They had some knowledge. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching them is that they must leave to God alone the things of which they do not have knowledge. Right? Only Allah knows what was Ibrahim alayhis salam and who are the people in the world whose creed is nearest to Ibrahim alayhis salam. Right. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who Ibrahim alayhi salam was in the next ayah that we will learn later on. Right. So again, the thing for which on which we don't have enough knowledge or enough thing, we should not talk about those things when we don't have much knowledge. We should have no shame whatsoever in saying, I don't know, because that shows humility, that shows not just humility, it's like it protects ourselves, because when we know something we talk about it. When we don't know something, then we should have no shame whatsoever in accepting I don't know, and that's fine. We do I'd rather be known as ignorant rather than to be in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as somebody who said something without any knowledge, and which became a reason of some kind of a, like some kind of a deviation or something of that sort, right? So and today, astaghfirullah, so many people, like if you look at social media, especially if you look at generally even in any gatherings or any groups or even professional organizations, we'll see so many people today with little or no knowledge, but they will talk as if they know everything. May Allah Ta'ala protect us, right? May Allah Ta'ala protect us. May Allah Ta'ala protect me, first of all, and then all of us from this. And this is a danger that all of us are prone to. And if we just understand one concept that Allah is teaching us, then we will save ourselves from this. And what is that one concept that Allah concludes with in this ayah? Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. That just remember this, tie a knot, put this thing, write it in golden words, inscribe it somewhere and put it, just memorize this. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. That Allah knows and you all don't know, right? So, and this thing that, anytime I start to feel, okay, I know a lot, Allah knows and I don't know, right? Allah knows and I don't. And this realization that Allah knows and I don't know, how can I know everything? My brain like can fit in a small bowl, and that small bowl worth of brain, I feel that can encompass the truth of the heavens and the earth and everything. I cannot even know what is going on in my own house, like some in my own house something's breaking apart on the other side, hidden in the walls or something, or some termite has infestation has started. I don't even know that. So many times, like a woman's pregnant and she doesn't even know she's pregnant until she gets a test done and everything, or she misses her period and finds out everything. We don't even know about ourselves so much. I don't know what's going in. So many of us, so many of our people, may Allah protect, A'udhu billah. So many of us have a cancer developing in our own body. We don't even know until we see the symptoms. But that cancer was not developed when that symptom started. The cancer was going on for some time. It was developing in some time. Symptoms only when we saw. I don't even know my own body. I don't even know my own mind. How can I claim to know the things that I have absolutely no knowledge about? Right. So when we understand this thing, and if we really internalize this, that you know, like to to have this intellectual humility, that you know, I don't understand some things because my understanding is little, and I ask Allah Ta'ala to increase it, but then um, I don't understand, and I'm a human being. I have limitations. When a Muslim submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that submission is not just physical. That submission is not just when we do sajda. That submission is also on the inside, in our hearts and our mind. Meaning, I subdue my ego in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I acknowledge Allah is Al-Alim. Allah is Al-Alim. Allah is Al-Alim. He knows everything. And He knows, and I don't know. I can never know everything. I can never know everything, whether it's deen or this dunya, any matters. I cannot, like, and then when I learn to submit my mind and my intelligence in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then when I'm not able to understand something, it will not frustrate me. It will not be like make me so impatient and think that why don't I understand? Why? Yes, I strive to learn more, but I will not get frustrated by not understanding something because Allah knows. And when is the right time for me, Allah will teach me. Like Allah opens certain door for me and He'll open more doors for me. But He'll open the doors for me when it's the right time because He even knows what door to open at what time. I don't know. I will keep knocking on different doors because I think this is a good door. But then Allah knows what's behind that door and if it's dangerous for me or if it's good for me at this particular time. So Allah will open the right doors at the right time and the amount of knowledge that I'm supposed to have in this lifetime. That is my risk. He will give it to me, inshallah, and He'll give more and more. So this ego, this pride, and which today's society feeds so much on this my way or the highway. My opinion is so much. You know, I feel like this. I think like this. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from that, and may Allah Ta'ala remove that takabbur from us. May Allah Ta'ala protect us because the Prophet ﷺ told us anybody who has even a mustard seed worth of arrogance, with sins we can still go to Jannah. With sins we can still seek forgiveness and go to Jannah. But with arrogance, none of us will. Right? And subhanallah, may Allah Ta'ala protect us from arrogance because sometimes what happens is we show this arrogance against other people sometimes, and um, we show like, okay, if we come across somebody who's sinner, then we might be like, you know what, these people, they do this, you know, like these people, they call themselves Muslim, look at them, they do this, I don't do this. Astaghfirullah, but you know, when we go down that route, we start to go down that route, that's a very dangerous route. Because why? Because those people who are sinning, Allah might forgive them. They might seek forgiveness and Allah might forgive them for their sins, but Allah might not forgive me for my arrogance. um, so may Allah Ta'ala protect us and may Allah Ta'ala guide us. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people whose heart He makes firm on His deen, and who Allah gives wisdom that when we call, first of all, we stay firm ourselves, and then when we call people to His deen, to His beautiful deen, to His amazing deen, to His truthful deen, we call people with haqq, we call people with hikmah, we call people in the best way possible. We respect people, whether we are talking to a 6 months old or whether we are talking to a 99-year-old. We talk to people with respect, with true love and care in our hearts that we really want the best for them. And then whether people listen to us or not, we understand that our job is just to convey. We don't get frustrated when somebody doesn't accept because maybe it's not their right time. Maybe they'll accept on the time. And if they don't, then I cannot force it. I cannot force it. And I think this is not my job. Allah knows what is best for whom at what time, and I do not know. May Allah Ta'ala accept this coming together for His sake. Any goodness that comes from this talk is from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala alone, because He's the owner of all good. And any mistakes, any shortcomings are mine and mine only, because I'm human and open to mistakes. May Allah Ta'ala forgive, and may Allah Ta'ala still accept despite all these mistakes. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم آمين يا أرحم الراحمين سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك 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 ونتوب إليك.